Okay, so you want to own a private island. And honestly, who doesn't? It's the purest fantasy money can buy. Not a bigger house, not a faster car, your own piece of the earth surrounded by water, where nobody can reach you and nobody can tell you what to do. Total privacy, total freedom. A kingdom with a coastline. Here's the good news, and it's the part that gets everyone. You don't need to be a billionaire. There are real islands for sale right now for less than the price of an apartment. $30,000, $100,000. Some listed cheaper than a decent car. That's the number that pulls people in, and it is the single most misleading number in the entire luxury market, because the price of the island is the one cost that barely matters. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the purchase is the cheapest part of owning an island, why the real bill can run 3, 5, 10 times what you paid for the land. You'll understand the ongoing costs that never, ever stop. And you'll understand the thing almost every first-time buyer discovers far too late, that you can pay millions for an island, hold the deed in your hands, and still not actually be its king. Let's start with the fantasy price. Type private islands for sale into a search bar, and the fantasy feels instantly within reach. The global market runs from around $30,000 at the very bottom to over $350 million at the top. But the vast majority of listings sit somewhere in the 1 to 10 million range, and there are genuine islands well under $1 million. So why so cheap? Because those bargain islands share a feature the photos don't advertise. There is nothing on them. No house, no dock, no power, no water, no road, no sewage, no cell signal. They are, in the most literal sense, raw land, a rock with a beach in the middle of the ocean. And raw land is cheap because you can develop it easily. On an island, raw land is cheap for the exact opposite reason. It's cheap because turning it into somewhere a human being can actually live is one of the most expensive construction problems on the planet. The low price isn't a discount, it's a warning label. Here is the rule the brokers won't lead with, but the veterans all repeat. Whatever the island costs, triple your budget, at minimum. Start with the thing you can't live without: water. An island rarely has a usable fresh supply, so you're building one: a desalination plant, a rainwater catchment system, wells, storage tanks. Then power. There's no grid to plug into, so you generate everything yourself. Solar arrays, battery banks, and backup diesel generators, because when the sun doesn't shine, the fantasy needs a plan B. Then waste, a full septic and sewage system built from nothing. Then the dock or jetty so a boat can even land, which for a serious build can run past $5 million on its own. And every single component of all of that has to arrive by boat. That's the multiplier nobody prices in. On the mainland, a truck delivers your lumber. On an island, a barge does. And it makes the trip again, and again, and again. Every bag of cement, every pipe, every worker, every meal that worker eats crosses open water on a schedule the weather controls. Basic infrastructure alone typically runs somewhere between $5 and $20 million, and that's before you've built an actual house. So picture the buyer who proudly closes on a beautiful island for $800,000. They didn't spend $800,000, they spent a deposit. The island was the entry ticket. The real price of admission, the water, the power, the waste, the dock, the home, the logistics, is the multi-million-dollar bill that arrives the moment they try to actually use the thing they bought. And here's the part that stings. Even after you've paid all of it, the spending doesn't stop. It's just getting started. Because an island is not a possession you park and forget. It's a living thing that the ocean is constantly trying to take back. Leave an island empty for a season and the sea goes to work. Salt corrodes everything metal, storms tear at the structures, vegetation swallows the paths, and in some places, squatters arrive. So you need a caretaker, someone living there or close to it permanently, which means a salary, a home for them, and their supplies forever. That alone can run into 6 figures a year. Then the machines. Every system you built now needs feeding and fixing. Generators burn fuel and break. Desalination plants need parts flown or shipped in. The boat, your only lifeline to the rest of the world, needs constant maintenance and a second boat for when the first one fails. Utility costs on an island run brutally higher than the mainland. In remote spots, electricity can cost several times the normal rate before you've optimized anything. And then insurance. if you can even get it. Many of the most beautiful islands sit directly in hurricane corridors, and insurers know it. Premiums for a developed island commonly run $60,000 to $120,000 a year, and in the highest risk zones, some insurers simply won't write the policy at all. Added up, an annual maintenance on a private island can run from under $100,000 for something modest to nearly $1 million for a serious estate, every year, whether you visit or not. You're not buying a destination. You're adopting a very expensive, very needy dependent that happens to be made of sand. Ask Richard Branson. His Necker Island, one of the most famous private islands on Earth, owned by an actual billionaire, was flattened by Hurricane Irma in 2017. The ocean does not care how much you paid. But the deepest problem with owning an island isn't the water bill, or the generator, or the storms. It's that the freedom, the whole reason you wanted it, is largely an illusion. You imagined a kingdom, a place beyond rules where you make the law. Here's the reality. An island sits inside a country, and that country keeps its sovereignty no matter what your deed says. You own the land, the government still owns the law. Start with whether you can even own it. In much of the world, foreigners can't buy island land outright at all. Across the South Pacific and Southeast Asia, Fiji, the Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand, foreign buyers are often restricted to long-term leaseholds or forced to hold the property through a local company where they can't even own the majority. In the Philippines, foreigners are typically capped at a 50-year lease. Read that carefully. You can pay a fortune for your island and technically be renting it from a government that can set the terms. And even where you can own the land outright, you cannot do what you like with it. Islands come wrapped in zoning laws, coastal setbacks, height limits, environmental protections, and building permits that pass through multiple government departments, planning, environment, marine authorities, each of which can say no. In many countries, the beach itself, the thing you thought you were buying privacy for, legally remains public up to the high water line. People can land on your shore, and you cannot stop them. So the fantasy of total control collides with a stack of paperwork and a foreign flag. You didn't buy a kingdom. You bought an extremely expensive, heavily regulated offshore piece of real estate, and the crown you thought came with it belongs to someone else. So here's my question for the comments. After everything, the tripled bill, the endless upkeep, the government that still holds the law, would you still buy the island if you had the money? Total freedom that turns out to be total dependence. I genuinely want to know where you land. So, is owning a private island worth it? Here's the honest answer. As a fantasy, it's flawless. As a purchase, it's one of the most misunderstood transactions in the world, because everything about how it's marketed points at the one number that matters least. The price of the island is the deposit on a lifestyle, not the cost of it. The real money is in the water you have to make, the power you have to generate, the waste you have to handle, the boat you can't live without, the caretaker who keeps the sea from winning, and the insurance that may not exist. And underneath all of it sits a government that lets you hold the deed but never hands you the crown. For the ultra-wealthy, none of this is a deal breaker. It's the price of privacy, and they can absorb it. For everyone seduced by a $30,000 listing, it is a trap dressed as a dream. The cheapest islands are cheap precisely because they'll cost you the most to ever use. An island doesn't make you free. It makes you responsible for a small, beautiful, relentless piece of the planet that depends on you for everything and never stops asking. The people who are happy owning one figured that out before they bought. The people who aren't found out after. If you like watching a fantasy get taken apart by the actual numbers, subscribe. That's the whole channel. Next time, we're staying in the world of things people dream of owning and pulling apart another one. It looks even better from the outside. It's even worse on the balance sheet. I'll see you then.